Hi guys, I just want to go over some different lettering styles with you. So in your packet, please make sure you've written your name on the top of your paper. And then if you know your hour or cubby number, that would help. Okay, and then let's flip to the inside page where we're going to start to practice. I just want to go over some skeleton letters with you. So some of you might feel really good about drawing bubble letters, but some of us maybe aren't so good, or maybe we need some practice. So skeleton letters are an excellent way to start. So we're just going to start just with regular letters, and they can be uppercase or lowercase. And I like to use my initials to practice, but you can write short words like hey or fun or art, anything like that works. So once you have essentially your skeletons, right, these are skeletons, we're going to go ahead and we're going to draw a bubble around them. Okay, and letters like R or B or P or A, anything with an interior space like this, we need to make sure we put a bubble on the inside as well. I don't know about you guys, but I always struggle with the letter S and the letter N, so I use skeleton letters a lot for those kind of tricky letters. So once you have those outlined, then you can take your eraser and you can go ahead and just erase that inside letter. Okay, and so that what you're left with is just a nice bubble letter. Okay, and I could do a little better job erasing, but you get it. So I'd like you to practice your initials, and you can start and stop this video at any time. So if you want to pause it right now and then practice and then continue on later, that's totally cool. So the next thing we're going to talk about are bubble letters. Now these are technically bubble letters. Anything with a rounded end would be a bubble letter. We're going to take it to the extreme. So again, you can use skeleton letters if you need to. And when I do this, I want to think about making the outline really big. Like if I were to blow bubbles, or if it were a balloon, what would it look like? Right? So something really chunky. Okay? If you want to, you can also add an extra little detail. You can add like a little highlight in the corner. I think it looks like a little comma. Okay, so practice your initials or a couple letters, maybe a short word in that really bubbly style. So the end should be rounded. Should almost look like a balloon. Okay, so again, pause if you need to. The next one we're going to go into are block letters. So block letters are any style of letter with basically a square end. Okay, so you could do it this way, where the top and the end of my J are nice and blocky. Or you could think kind of Minecraft style, and you could make the letters with just straight letters or straight lines. That works too. So again, if you need to use the skeleton system for letters that are a little bit trickier, feel free to do so, because sometimes it helps. It just gives you something to go off of, right? So go ahead, try your initials, see what you can come up with. This one might be a little bit trickier depending on what style you go for. And again, you can include the curves as long as the ends are square. Those are considered block. Okay. Serif letters, remember what we talked about. The word serif actually means feet in Latin. So these letters should have little feet. You probably want to use the skeleton system for this just because it makes it a little easier when you first start. Now, graffiti artists actually use serifs on their letters all the time. So you can actually change the shape of the serif. It doesn't have to be a little flat foot. It could be a little circle. Or maybe you get creative and you put like a triangle or a star or a heart on the end. So from here, I'm just going to go around and draw that outline. And then I would go back and, of course, erase the skeleton. But by adding different shaped serifs, just makes your letters look a little bit more interesting. And the first time you do it, maybe it doesn't look that good, but that's the way we practice. Okay, and then I would go in and I would erase. So again, if you need to pause your video, that's fine. Feel free to pause and kind of work at your own pace. There's no rush. The more practice you do, the easier it will be. All right, so we're going to move down the page now, and we're going to go into the space that says cursive. Now don't worry if you can't write in cursive, that's okay. or if you don't like the look of cursive, any kind of scripty writing will be perfect. So for example, this is technically a cursive S. I don't really care for how it looks, so I'm just going to write my last name, and I'm going to have that be my S. Okay? Now from there, I'm going to think about connecting my letters. So this is kind of like a ligature when they all connect together. So this is my skeleton. Now I'm going to go around. Now the tricky part about cursive or kind of really flowy bubble letters are that the outline becomes one big outline, and you have to stick pretty close to the letter in order for it to work. So I go all the way around, and I have to pay close attention for anything that has a little loop like this E right here, because I'm going to need to go back and put that in. Okay, and then I could erase the skeleton. And so what I'm left with is this really cool cursive bubble letter. Okay, and then of course I'll finish off my S. So if you use your first name and that comes pretty easily, maybe try your last name and see if that's a little bit more challenging for you. All right, when you're ready, go ahead and flip it over to the next page. So here we're going to talk about overlapping. And overlapping is when your letters either touch or look like they're touching. So if you don't use skeleton letters, what I would do is draw out your letter, and it can be bubble or block. And then while still touching that first letter, sometimes I put a little dot, I start my next one. Okay, and again, touching the letter previous, I start my next one. Okay, now if you want to use those skeleton letters, that's cool. Just keep your letters really close, because that kind of naturally forces you to make the letters touch because they're so close. Okay, and then you would just go in and clean those up. Okay. All right, so the next thing we're going to think about is using guidelines. How can we use lines to kind of make our letters fit in a certain shape? So I want you to start easy. Just draw 2 parallel lines. And within those lines, use bubble or block letters to draw out your initials. Oops, I kind of went over the line there. The goal is to have the bottoms touch the bottom and the tops touch the top. So if you go over, just go back, erase, and kind of fix those. There we go. Okay, you can make things more complicated. Maybe you try curving your guidelines out or in. Okay, so still the tops would touch the top and the bottoms touch the bottom. Okay, try this one. Gets a little trickier. So then maybe you try parallel lines that are wavy. So I'll try my last name since I have quite a bit of space. So the tops and the bottoms of the letters take on the shape of the line that I've drawn. And again, you can still use skeleton letters for these. You don't have to forget about that. That's a tool we learned and can use. Oh, bad at ends. Need to practice. There we go. Okay. And then maybe, if you feel really comfortable, you try an enclosed shape. So I'm thinking of the word like art. Might use some overlapping from previous. Something like that. Okay? We can also think about using guidelines to help us evenly space out our letters. So like, I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but you're like trying to fit something within a certain space and the first letter is like, whoa, way too big. So the rest of the letters get really tinier and tinier and tinier until you can't see them, okay? So you can use guidelines to kind of help even that out. So you're gonna practice your name, okay? And I'm gonna show you two different ways to do it. If you have an even number of letters in your name, okay, this box is gonna be for you. So I want you to split it vertically. I like to split it with a dashed line. And then I want to give myself guidelines. So they could be straight, or they could be curvy, or they could go like this, or like one of these examples is fine. Okay, so let's say my friend Sarah, this is how you spell her name. She has an even number. I need to find the middle of her name where this dash line would go. So that would be the middle. I have 2 letters on each side. Now from there, I can say, all right, well, here's how much space I have for each letter. So now I can kind of draw that in. So by breaking up the space, I can easily see how much room I have for each letter. Now longer names like, let's say like Mackenzie, you're gonna have a trickier time because that's a lot of letters. So you could shorten your name, right? Maybe your nickname is Mac, or maybe you really do a good job spacing out your letters and you can fit them all in. Okay, so odd numbers. So let's say my sister Amy. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to split it vertically. Maybe I'll give myself curved guidelines to show you what that looks like. Okay, so now I have to find the middle of Amy's name, and it's actually going to land on a letter, so I'm going to circle the letter. So I know that the M has to fit in this space right here. Okay, so I kind of even it out. So I go to start with the A. That fits in that space. The M. And the Y. Okay, so that's just a quick way to show you how to evenly space out your letters. Feel free to pause your video at any time still. All right. Go ahead and flip your paper over. We're almost to the end here. All right, sorry, I had to get a colored pencil. So any color will work. I would stay away from like black, obviously white. Yellow is kind of tough too, okay? So value is when a color shifts from light to dark, okay? So we're gonna start with a segmented color scale where you'll be able to see the individual scales, and then we'll do one that's kind of smooth. And then I want you to practice in here, okay? So for this one, we're gonna start really, really dark, okay? And then we're gonna move to light. So in this left square, I want you to think about coloring really dark, almost as hard as you can, but I still want you to practice staying in the square, right? Because that's just a good skill to do, to color neatly. Okay. Now after I do the dark one, I like to shift over to the really light one, and I want to barely touch the paper. So make it really, really light. Okay, still staying in the square. Now I'm going to start moving back to the dark one. So I'm actually going to make the second square the same value as the first one. Okay, but now if it's going up, I need to make it a little darker. So without adding pressure, I'm just going to add another layer of colored pencil. I'm still coloring really lightly. I'm just adding a layer so it gets a little darker. Okay, now I'm going to keep moving up, but I'm going to apply the same concept. So I'm still coloring lightly, still staying in the box. Okay, and I like to switch back and forth. You can see I color horizontal and then vertical. It's up to you. You don't have to do that if it's too hard. You can color in one direction, but the goal is to create nice and smooth color. All right, so that looks a little darker. Now I'm going to go a little darker yet. I might go over it another time, and then maybe another time, until I get something that's in between the third and the fifth box. So it should kind of remind you, when you go to Menards or like the Home Depot and you're picking out paint for your room, it should look like a little paint sample where the color goes from dark to light. Okay, you should easily be able to see the different values. So in this box, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to smooth it out. So I want you to start really dark on one end. Okay, and now we're going to start training our hand to start coloring a little bit lighter. And again, you can color vertical or horizontal, maybe a little bit of each. Just stay inside that rectangle. Okay, and as I move over, I'm going to get lighter and lighter and lighter. And the goal is to make it really nice and smooth. Okay, so it should go from light to dark without seeing the individual boxes like we did up here. And this might take you longer. This is kind of a harder skill to get the hang of, but you are going to need to put this in your final project. This is a skill that you need to learn. So I am assessing you on it. This will be in your grade. So make sure you understand how to get from light to dark smoothly. Okay, so once you get through these two value scales, I want you to come over here and just do a little fun practice. Okay, so I want you to color each section with value, going from light to dark. It doesn't all have to be the same color. You can use different colored pencils. That's totally fine. If you want it to all be the same color, that's fine too. But so each section, I should be able to see you practicing the pressure going from light to dark or vice versa. Okay? So feel free to pause your video and let me know if you have any questions. Nice job.